Hi guys, this is Mr. Tan, and we're doing e-business and e-marketing again. This is still week one, and we are now on session 2. So today we're going to be reviewing the risks and barriers to digital business, the ethical standards, and the privacy legislation. So, on completion of this session, the student, should be able to understand what the risks and barriers are to digital marketing, identify the ethical issues within the organization and in digital marketing, and consider privacy legislation around digital marketing. It's very, very key and very important now. And you could be contravening the Data Protection Act. You could be contravening GDPR, and if you have these breaches in data, it could cost your company lots of money in terms of being fined, and also loss of reputation. So these things definitely need to be considered when you're thinking about both e-business and e-marketing. So what are some of the risks and barriers to digital marketing? What springs to mind when you think about this? I suppose, what should be springing to your mind in terms of what we've heard in the news is, data being stolen. Data being stolen by people, and personal information about people's names, addresses, where they live, and even data being stolen in terms of um, your customers' credit card details and financial information. So, when we look at the risks and barriers, we can see that, opportunities have to be balanced against the risks of introducing digital business services, which includes strategic and practical risks. One of the main strategic risks, is making the wrong decision about digital business investments. You know, are you actually buying the right equipment? Are you buying the right hardware? Do you have the right security? What decisions are you making in terms of your digital business investments? Because obviously investing all these additional equipment and security could cost you a lot more, and you may not see the benefits of these investments. But if you don't invest in these and you have a data breach, then it could cost your company a lot of money. In every business sector, some companies, have taken advantage of digital business and gained a competitive advantage. Risks and barriers to digital business. There are, also many practical risks to manage, which, if ignored, can lead to bad customer experiences and bad news stories, which damage the reputation of your company. If data and credit card details are being lost and hacked into, you may think twice about buying from that company because it has a bad reputation in terms of its security. So that might be a potential risk. Hackers penetrating the security of the system, stealing credit card details. Companies email customers without receiving the permission. So annoying customers are potentially, breaking privacy and data protection laws. Do you have authority to actually email these customers? Not. Did they give you their permission so that you could email them? Problems with fulfillment of goods orders online, meaning customer orders go missing or are delayed. And again, if the orders are going missing and the data is going missing, then that also disrupts your supply lane in terms of your buying, how many products you have in stock for the orders that you need to fulfill. So again, this affects your whole supply line and causes problems all the way through your business. Email customer service, inquiries from the website don't reach the right person and are ignored. What type of feeling does that give customers, and what do they think and feel about your company after that? Risk management, it is intended to identify potential risks and a range of situations, and then take actions to minimize the risks. We all unconsciously perform risk management throughout our lives. So this risk management involves various stages, which includes identifying the risks, including their probabilities and impacts, identify the possible solutions to these risks, implement the solutions targeting the highest impact and most likely risks, and monitor the risks to learn from future risk assessment. So you may want to, when you're talking about risk assessment, you may want to bring in various models, like magnitude assessment models, to assess the degree of likelihood of a specific risk, and then to see if that risk is such a high risk or higher of importance, then you may want to invest the necessary resources. So using various tools to map out the magnitude of assessment of these different risks. We need to think about also ethical standards. Ethical standards are also going to affect your reputation and your brand image. And I think, in terms of from a marketing perspective, the brand image and the reputation is key. And what we need to think about is the LTV, the lifetime value of the customer. So if we don't think about these ethical standards, then we're not really thinking about the lifetime value, how long we want this customer to be with us in the long term. Ethical standards, are personal or business practice or behavior, which is generally considered acceptable by society. Ethical issues and the associated laws constitute an important consideration of the internet business environment for marketers. Privacy, of consumers is a key ethical issue and affects all types of organizations, regardless of whether they have a transaction or e-commerce service or not. The privacy of customers. Is your data secure? Where you live, who you are? Is your information, being sold off to other companies? And did you have permission to actually sell off this information to other companies? So again, this all comes down to marketing, really. It comes down to marketing, again, to the definition of marketing, a mutually satisfying exchange at a need in the long term. So, this is going to affect how long your customers stay with you. And if they think that you don't have ethical standards, then, this is not going to make you competitive in the long term. And how long do you want to be in business for? Privacy legislation. Privacy refers to a moral right of individuals to avoid intrusion into their personal affairs by third parties. Privacy of personal data, such as our identities, likes and dislikes, are a major concern to consumers, particularly with the dramatic increase in identity theft. This is clearly a major concern for many customers when using e-commerce services, since they believe that their privacy and identity may be compromised. People commit fraud and try and undertake and participate in identity theft, go to long ways to try and infiltrate people's emails, infiltrate people's details in terms of their address, their postcode, their names and addresses, and trying to infiltrate all the details to steal their identity and then use credit cards on someone else's identity. And then you as an individual will have all these issues and problems from people saying that you owe them money when you've never borrowed or taken any credit cards from or bought any goods from that company. And it's a big problem for people who go through this identity theft. Privacy is a moral right of individuals to avoid intrusion into their personal affairs. And identity theft, the misappropriation of the identity of another person without their knowledge or consent. Types of identity fraud, different types of identity fraud. The data will show that it's still a growing problem, with a 20% increase in impersonations between 2009 and 2010. And we can see the table shows us identity fraud, you've got application fraud, false insurance claims, facility takeover fraud, asset conversion, misuse of facility, victims of impersonation and victims of takeover. So there are different types of identity fraud as shown in the table below, and companies need to be aware of what these are to protect themselves, again, in terms of protecting their reputation and their brand image, because a company will spend a great deal of money, segmentation, targeting and positioning, and you've done all this hard work and then you let yourself down in another area of the marketing mix. Why personal data are valuable for digital businesses? Well, why there is much natural concern amongst consumers about their online privacy. Information about consumers is very useful to marketers. Through understanding of their customers' needs, characteristics and behaviors, it is possible to create more personalized targeted communications which help increase sales. I mean, in today we have a diverse wide range of different types of people with different types of needs. So marketing information in terms of looking at characteristics of consumers, looking at their postcodes, combining it with Acorn, a classification of residential neighborhood types, and then using other information to classify potential customers who are like you but live in different areas, allows you to appropriately allocate your resources to target those people with the right communications. This is why information is so important, to see who are the people that are buying your types of products, and then can you find out where these other people live, and if you've got the information, then you can target them with the appropriate communications at the least possible cost to maximize your sales, therefore maximizing your the marketing philosophy, maximizing sales. you know what are the main information types used by the internet makeover, which are governed by ethics and legislation. The information needs are contact information. This is the name, address, first name, area, postal address, email address, business to business companies, website address. Profile information, this is information about a customer's characteristics that can be used for segmentation. They include age, sex, social group for consumers, company characteristics and individual roles for business customers. Okay, so I mean, even if we look at research by Ward et al., they found that consumers in Australia are willing to give non-financial data if there's an appropriate incentive. Okay, so this information is held. Platform usage information, through web analytics systems, it is possible to collect information on type of computer, browser and screen resolution used by site users. Behavior information on a single site, this is purchase history, but also includes the whole buying process. Web analytics can be used to assess the web, and email content assessed by individuals. Behavior information across multiple sites, this can show how a user assesses multiple sites and responds to ads across sites. Typically this data are collapsed and used using an anonymous profile based on cookies or IP addresses, which is not related to an individual. So notification, the process whereby a company registers with the data protection register to inform about their data holding. Personal data, any information about an individual stored by companies concerning their customers or employees. Data subject, the legal term referred to the individual whose data are held. Okay, so these are some terms. So some other e-commerce legislation. Sparrow 2000 identified 8 areas of law which need to concern online marketers. Okay, although laws have been refined since that time, this is still a useful framework. So you've got marketing your e-commerce business, forming electronic contact, making and accepting payment, authenticating contracts concluded over the internet, email risks, protecting intellectual property, IP rights, advertising on the internet, and data protection. Data protection principles, fairly and lawfully processed for limited purposes, adequate, relevant but not excessive, accurate, not kept longer than necessary, processed in accordance, secure. How many people's websites and companies are secure so they can't be breached. How much investment and time has been put into making sure that these are secure. Non-transferable to countries without adequate protection. So yeah, so we've looked at some areas here. So I hope I hope look in terms of the red, amber and green, I hope you have understood the topic so far. And here we would ask you to write down 2 key themes from the lesson to show your understanding. So thank you today for this session from Mr. Tan.